It is Monday night in East Lansing, Michigan. Come on in, gather around. SpartanMag.com invites you to Spartan Mag Live. Going to talk Michigan State sports. Sorry I'm late again. Doing the back and forth, dropping off kids at the rink, all that stuff. It's good to have hockey practice again. Sorry we're late. Good to see Rob South here going Spartan Mag Live. Traditional style tonight, not going open mic night. Maybe we'll do that a little bit later in the week. Not doing it today. Last week we did open mic night, had a great time with it, but we weren't able to get to some of these questions, some of these mailbag questions. Anyway, hey, we're going to talk Michigan State sports. Earlier tonight, we had a Zoom press conference with sophomore running back Elijah Collins and also incoming sophomore wide receiver Jaden Reed, the transfer from Western Michigan University. Both were good, delightful interviews. They can't be really insightful right now because they can't really tell us what's going on with practice. Can't be real specific. But, hey, they're fired up about their teammates, which is usually the way things are during a training camp type of situation. It's not training camp right now. That's something that Rocky Lombardi told us about a little bit last week, that it's not really training camp. It's not the traditional training camp type of environment because usually in training camp in August, classes have not started yet, and all the players have a roommate and they're in the dorms at Case Hall, and it's a bubble every year regardless of the COVID situation. There is no COVID situation just this year, right? But in past years, it's a de facto bubble over there at Case Hall, and that's the way all training camps go around the country. This year, as you know, things were delayed. By the time they got the go-ahead to resume practice, classes were already underway. A lot of the players were already living off campus. The freshmen are in the dorms, I assume, at Case Hall. So it's not the usual training camp where it's all football. It's a lot of heavy football, but the schoolwork too. So it's not the usual deal. But they're trying to learn as fast as they can to get ready for that opening day, October 24th, at Spartan Stadium against Rutgers. And SpartanMag.com will have coverage of that pregame, postgame analysis, and, of course, the postgame VCast. Looking forward to seeing Paul Konadike again. I've not seen Konadike face-to-face since March, since the day Michigan State basketball defeated Ohio State to win a share of the Big Ten title. I've not seen Konadike since then. I've seen him on Zoom in the screens here, just like you guys have, but I haven't seen Paul. I miss Paul. We gotta get some more Konadike going. So I'm late getting this stuff to go. I didn't put a message over at the Underground Bunker to let people know that we were live. I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. And everybody go ahead and post some questions. If you have any questions in the chat area, we will get to those. I want to tell everybody that might be a newcomer to go ahead and hit a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go over to SpartanMag.com if you are so inclined. Become a Spartan Magger, SpartanMag.com subscriber. You can try it for 30 days for free trial. Give us a try. Tell us what you think. Maybe you'll get addicted like the rest of these people, and you'll be a Spartan Magger for good. And then we can all try to get along. It'll be a lot of fun. Anyway, I'm going to post right now. Let's get to the questions. You know, I posted these. I cut and pasted these questions last week, and I can't remember what they are. So as I go through them again, it'll be a first run, and we'll try to tackle them. MSU Polo from Rockford, Michigan, leading off, says, Jim, I know you don't have much to go on thus far, but I would love to hear your thoughts on how the quarterback situation will play out. It sounds like a safe bet to assume that Rocky Lombardi takes the first snap in the Rutgers game. But then what? Go out on a limb and make predictions? You know we love that stuff. Thanks as always. That's from MSU Paulo in Rockford, Michigan. So he wants me to make a prediction. You know, Konadike and I talked about this at the VCast last week. And we also talked about it on Underground Bunker message board. It is a current Vegas prop bet in terms of how many games you can bet on how many games you think Rocky Lombardi is going to start. I think the over-under is 6.5. Which is interesting because this year they're scheduled to play 8 games. First of all, you have to think, are they going to get 8 games in? They're, judging by the rest of the country, there might be a 20% chance that they only play 7 games. I don't know. You guys can try to figure that out. But, yeah, I would agree with you. You say it sounds like a safe bet to assume Lombardi takes the first snap. Safe bet? Assume? I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't call it a safe bet. I wouldn't assume it. I think he'll take the first one, the first snap of the first game. I know D'Antonio was leaning that way. D'Antonio's no longer the coach, of course, but that says something about how he thought Lombardi was going to come around. But like I've said many times, Brad Salem was kind of anticipating, from what I hear, he didn't tell me this, but I've heard it from sources, that he was anticipating that Peyton Thorne would make a serious run and become the starter, and he was kind of leaning in that direction. So I wouldn't call it a safe bet. I wouldn't make an assumption that it's going to be Lombardi. Lombardi's saying all the right things. He's a leader. He's getting a lot of support from his teammates. But subsequently, in the last 2 weeks, I've heard that Peyton Thorne is continuing to do well. I'm not making any predictions. I don't want to be the, unknown as undefeated guy. I don't want to be the most popular guy in town as the backup quarterback guy, which it always is. Remember when Rocky Lombardi was the most popular guy in town. Remember when Damian Terry was the most popular guy in town. So I don't want to beat that drum too loudly because I think it can do a disservice to everybody and become a big negative. However, I got to report to you what I'm hearing. And I am hearing that Peyton Thorne continues to do well. Redshirt freshman out of Naperville, Illinois. Swashbuckling type of playmaking talent. Of course, was originally committed to Western Michigan. Michigan State flipped him. And interesting cat. Today, speaking with Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed has known Peyton Thorne since Pee Wee football. When they went home during quarantine off campus in March, April, May, back in their hometown of Naperville, they worked out together at the local high school field a lot. They worked out last year on the scout team a lot. Thorne spent most of the year with the scout team, was up with the varsity a little bit in practice. And Jaden Reed, redshirting as a transfer, of course, he was on the scout team all year. But those two rekindled that chemistry, worked out again in the spring, and, Reed, very diplomatically, he's not going to come out and say, hey, my guy needs to be the guy. He didn't say anything like that, but he likes what Reed is doing. I asked Elijah Collins today about Jaden Reed. I didn't ask him about the quarterbacks, but they're all excited about Jaden Reed, the new wide receiver. So you're asking me, go out on a limb and make some predictions. Predictions right now, I'm going to say Lombardi starts the first game, but don't assume it. And don't call it a safe bet. I have a feeling that he will start fewer than 6.5 games, though. For whatever reasons. That's my prediction out on a limb. Question number 2, Mike from Granville. I'm going to go through these hopefully rather quickly. I'm going to try to stay under the 60-minute mark today. Been going an hour 20, hour 30. I'm not sure that's positive for the greater good. I'm not sure people want it to be that lengthy. Might get more viewers if we keep it shorter. We will experiment with that a little bit. Mike from Granville. Jim, in your opinion, who addresses what, in my mind, is the biggest potential issue on defense? That is, who will pressure the opposing quarterback? Well, it starts with Jacob Panashuk, right? And I think he's got 8 or 9 career sacks, more than anybody on the team. He's been a decent pass rusher at times, not a game changer. Now he is entering his 4th year. They've had some graduation at the defensive end position. They need more out of Panashuk. Panashuk down in weight a little bit, 5 or 6 pounds, down to 250. I think that's kind of interesting. Today I was watching a little bit of Kansas State versus Oklahoma from last year when Scotty Hazelton was defensive coordinator when they upset the Sooners last year, watching their defense. I've watched it, I skimmed through it once before, went back over it today, didn't get through as much of it as I would like to, but just looking at some of the things and trying to crawl into the mind of Hazelton, looking for what he wanted out of that Kansas State defense and maybe how some of these pieces might fit together. And for Kansas State, yeah, they were a 4-3 team, but one of the defensive ends by the name of Wyatt Hubert sometimes stood up and gave them a 3-4 look. Not a traditional Okie defense, not a traditional 3-4 with a nose tackle and two defensive ends and a 5 technique or 4 playing, a 2-gap into the offensive tackles. They were still 1-gapping here, and they're doing a lot of stunting too. Defensive tackles, sometimes defensive end, sometimes that stand-up defensive end. But Wyatt Hubert, defensive end, sometimes stand up, sometimes down in a 4-3. Hubert, about 6'3", 250. Jacob Panashuk, I think he's right at 250. Let me look up what he's listed as right now. Anyway, looking at Wyatt Hubert for Kansas State last year reminded me a lot. See, Panashuk is 6'4", 250, about an inch taller than Wyatt Hubert. Wyatt Hubert reminded me a lot of Jacob Panashuk. Panashuk is the type of guy that can do some of the things Wyatt Hubert did for Kansas State last year. Would not be shocked to see Panashuk stand up once in a while. Michael Fletcher lost about, 9 pounds down to about 250. Like I've said for years, Michael Fletcher, not really a rush end, pass rush type of guy. I've got to watch Wyatt Hubert a little bit more to see if he's got some of that bend. But Fletcher, I'm wondering if he's a guy that might be able to stand up as a youngster. As he gets older, I think he could add weight and become a heavier 5 technique. But interesting that Fletcher's lost some weight. Chase Klein at 235, I wonder if he could be that stand-up defensive end once in a while, especially against teams that might not load up with power run against them. So, pass rush, it's a limited talent pool of candidates to provide that type of pass rush. Panashuk is the first guy you look at. Drew Beasley has been, a former walk-on, has been a functional defensive end, spot starter once or twice. Not a world beater. Now he's, but a guy that's valuable to the program because they lack defensive ends. But Beasley added some weight. I think 12 pounds up to 260. So with that added weight, I would not expect Beasley to be a better pass rusher now that he's heavier. So Michael Fletcher, like I said, has never been, in my opinion, a natural pass rusher, turn of the corner type of guy. And I'm not sure he's big and strong enough to be a bull rush, push and pull type of guy. Or, bull and arm over. That's what he's going to have to be, as a bull and arm over guy, but he's still 250, not the most rotund guy. Chase Klein on third downs, hand in the dirt as a DPR, possibly. Stand-up linebacker on third downs. Kansas State last year did a lot of 2-down defensive linemen on third downs, with the defensive ends becoming defensive tackles, including Wyatt Hubert would move in to be a defensive tackle on third downs. And then you'd have more people standing up. So Chase Klein standing up as an edge, as a front 4 guy standing up, possibly as a guy that they're going to need a little pass rush from him, I would imagine. Antoine Simmons, versatile linebacker. There will be times when he's going to be rushing the quarterback. Sometimes as part of a 4-man rush, I would think. And, of course, sometimes as conventional blitzes. But you'll need, pass rush by committee. And anytime you say something's by committee, a lot of times it means you don't have true bell cows like Old Tuck to do it on a real regular basis. Hold on a second. That light was bothering me, so turn that thing off. As far as freshmen, any chance a first-year guy can provide something? It's kind of rare for a freshman to be a loud impact pass rusher for any program. I know there's examples to the contrary on that, but if you can get 2 or 3 sacks from a freshman, that's house money. I mean, I've said for a long time that King kid, Kyle King from Indiana, is interesting. Kyle King reminds me of this guy Wyatt Hubert from Kansas State as well. Avery Dunn. Avery Dunn intrigues me. 6'4", 230 now. Played at 215 last year as a high school player. Was still somewhat new to football last year. I think he's got a high ceiling in that regard. When you get these guys that are new to football, these pass rusher defensive ends, like the commitment Michigan State has right now from Nashville, those guys are interesting. Avery Dunn, I think, is a guy that could be a very interesting pass rusher in the future. Could he do it as a freshman? Man, that's asking a lot. And if Michigan State morphs toward trying to have personnel that can play a conventional 4-3 and a conventional 3-4, both in the program at the same time, Avery Dunn is a guy that I think can give you a stand-up 3-4 defensive end. But this year, you ask a good question, where's the pass rush going to come from? And I'm here to tell you, Shalik Calhoun's not walking through that door. Until further notice, they are lacking proven pass rushers. They just are. There are not a lot of career sacks on the roster right now. So you're asking where they're going to come from. You can't just make it out of thin air. You can't, Panashuk, you're going to have to hope that he stays healthy. Jack Camper, you have to hope that he, starts to tap into some of that potential that he's been said to have. You might remember when he was a freshman, D'Antonio was really impressed with him, was in the playing group right away, but has had injuries for a couple of years. Now he's down in weight a little bit, and he's very eager. I talked to him outside the football building, actually in the parking lot across from the football building, the day that the Big Ten initially announced they were postponing the season. Talked to him a little bit. He had trimmed down. He was eager and excited. He was excited saying, finally I'm healthy, excited to play football, and the season gets canceled, postponed. Well, they're back playing again. Camper becoming more physically strong. We've not seen much of him, right, at all. He plays a little bit here, then he shuts it down a little bit there. And there's a chance that guy might come out and be a player. That's what they're going to need. If the pass rush for Michigan State is going to be a plus, there's going to have to be people doing it like we don't know they can. Panashuk's got to take it up a level. Chase Klein, Antoine Simmons in blitz situations, Jack Camper in other situations. But I wouldn't expect it to be a strong suit for the team, but it can't be a weakness if you're going to have a good defense and a good team. You can't just let the opposing team have all kinds of time to throw. You guys know that. Spartan Law says, Jim, who do you expect to be the specialists this year? Some of the specialists. Long snapper, kick returner, punt returner, holder. He says positions that go unnoticed until a game-costing mistake. Positions that go unnoticed until a game-costing mistake or a game-winning field goal. You're right. Special teams, got to have them. A lot of times you don't notice them until things go awry. He wants to know about long snapper. My man Spartan Law is serious. Spartan Law is seriously jonesing for some football. That is obvious. He wants to know about long snapper. Appreciate that. Last year, Jude Pedrozo was the snapper as a true freshman because Ryan Armour went down with an injury. Was that like the second game of the year? No cough button. Second game of the year, Ryan Armour went down. Pedrozo had to go in there, kid from Westerville, Ohio. Did a solid job. I didn't detect any huge problems from Jude Pedrozo through the course of the season. Long snapper is kind of like a car battery. You don't really notice, you don't think about the car battery until it quits on you. And then you're like, what the hell's wrong with the car battery? Or your long snapper, you don't notice it much until a couple go over your head or low and messes up a field goal. Then you're like, what the heck's wrong with the long snapper? So I feel you on that. Pedrozo came in, didn't know he was going to play. He didn't know he was going to play. And then they had the injury to Armour, and boom, Pedrozo's in the game. And his parents weren't even there. His parents were watching, I think, his brother's team play high school football that night. Was that a Saturday night or was it a Friday night last year? Who they opened the season against last year? Tulsa. Was the Tulsa game a Friday night? I can't remember. Anyway, I remember talking to Jude Pedroso about that, and his dad was at his brother's high school game, if I remember correctly, in Westerville, Ohio, and his dad was getting texts saying, "Hey, your son's in the game." That's the way his career started. So Pedroso's going to be fine at long snapper, I would think. Kick returner. Jalen Naylor had 3 kick returns last year, only played in 3 games. Thanks, Brad Fashenko, checking in on that. Yeah, the Tulsa game was Friday night, so Pedroso's parents, at least his dad, I'm not sure about the whole family, but they weren't even there when he made his college debut. Jalen Naylor last year had 3 kick return attempts, and you know that Naylor played 2 games, got injured, came back for the bowl game, had a nice return in the bowl game. Naylor, everybody knows he's quick. He's lost a little weight too. I thought he was playing a little too heavy last year, so he's down about 6 pounds. 6 pounds on a guy that lean is significant. He's known as speedy. I would anticipate Naylor being faster than he was last year, especially now that he stayed healthy. Knock on wood out there, Spartan fans. He had a 28-yarder last year. Michigan State as a team last year, and I know this drove a lot of you guys crazy. They only had 24 kick returns for the whole season. And, they routinely were fair catching the kickoffs, giving the ball at the 25-yard line. They did not have a kickoff return all year of more than 31 yards, Michigan State. So, you're just doing the opposing team a favor. It's like, well, if you're the opposing team putting together a game plan, well, for kickoff coverage, we don't have to spend a lot of time on that because they usually fair catch and they don't have much of a threat. So, no problem with kickoff coverage. Anytime you're making the game easier for the opponent, you're making it harder for yourself. And that's what Michigan State did last year with kickoff returns. Darrell Stewart had 8 kickoff returns last year. Anthony Williams had 5 for an average of 18.6. Nothing great. Julian Barnett had 3 kickoff returns. His longest went for 19 yards. Andre Welch, the fastest guy on the team, former track athlete, trying to make the transition to become a football player. It's never quite taken hold. I think he's on the roster again this year. You guys can check that out for me. I've not thought to look that one up. But Andre Welch had 1 return for 12 yards. He had a return the year before that I think was more than 25 yards. Tyler Hunt, the punter, who does a little bit of kickoff specialist duty once in a while. And he's out there as a blocker on kickoff return because, he's a walk-on, but he was a good all-around football player. Bless his heart, I give him credit for being out there, but had a 16-yard return. When you've got like a second-string walk-on punter back there on kickoff return, might mean you're a little bit low on bodies. Nothing against Tyler Hunt. Glad he's in the program. Anyway, kickoff return. Jalen Naylor's got to be considered your best option. You got to hope he stays healthy, and I think he can be a plus player. Cartero is late. He's saying sorry. There's no sorry here, Cartero. You're late. You get a demerit. Cartero checking in late. We don't play that around here. I think that's the second tardy. Cartero. Anyway, talking tonight with Jaden Reed. He was asked, because Jaden Reed's done some kick return duty in his former life in Kalamazoo for the Western Michigan Broncos. He was asked if he's been doing any kick return, if he's interested in doing any kick return for Michigan State. And Jaden Reed said, yes, I am. He wants to do some kick return. He's very much interested in it. He's been back there in practice. He says he feels that he will have a role in special teams. Of course, he can't speak for special teams coordinator Ross Els. Only Ross Els and Mel Tucker would know for sure if Reed is going to be the guy. But all that Reed said is, I'm interested, I'm working at it, and I think I'm going to be a part of it. So pencil Jaden Reed in as another candidate back there. And they will, Mel Tucker was asked a little bit about special teams, and so was Ross Els about what their philosophy is for special teams. Now, the old philosophy was with D'Antonio, the trestle ball thing was, for punt return example, the goal is get the ball back. If they're punting, goal number 1 is get the ball back. If it's a punt, field it, sure hands, don't fumble it. Number 1. Number 2, of equal importance, don't jump offside if it's, 3rd and 4. Don't give them a chance with a penalty to retain possession. get the ball back. Thirdly, don't make yourself susceptible to a punt fake. So Michigan State was in punt safe quite a bit and didn't do a lot in terms of setting up for the return. Because if you peel people back and set up for the return, it makes you more susceptible to a fake because you have more people with their heads turned to the line of scrimmage. So Michigan State was not big on setting up for returns, not big on punt blocks because they don't want to be drawn offside or rough the punter. Big Ten Championship game 2011. Sorry. So that was the philosophy. And, hey, Tressel won a lot of games doing it that way. D'Antonio won a lot of games doing it that way. Ross Ells is not that way. There'll be some games where they're like that, but he says we will look at the opponent. If we see a perceived weakness, we might set up our special teams that week to attack that weakness. If we see a problem, he didn't come out and say it, but that means if they see a question mark in punt protection by the opposition, they might set up some punt block schemes or punt return schemes reacting to the opponent, or kick return schemes. Michigan State last year, didn't matter who they were going against, kickoff, fair catch, kickoff, fair catch. Until like the last 3 or 4 games, they tried to mix in more kickoff returns. Didn't have a big impact, although I think they did have one in the bowl game, which had a small impact. So, kickoffs. My man wants to know about kickoffs. Evan Morris is back. He led the team with a kickoff average of 59.9 yards, 5 touchbacks, and 11 kickoffs. Evan Morris. Cole Haan, who I assume is still on scholarship. Michigan State recruited him as a scholarship kicker from Iowa. 52 kickoffs last year, average 57.1. Not as much as Evan Morris. 9 touchbacks. Evan Morris more productive with his kickoffs than Cole Haan was. Matt Coughlin, the place kicker, 2 kickoffs. Had 1 touchback, but his average is less. Not as strong of a leg for kickoffs. I'm thinking that's going to be Evan Morris. I mean, they gave Cole Haan every opportunity to live up to that scholarship. Whatever. Evan Morris in the program. I think he's the guy. Let me look up Evan Morris right now. When I was a younger man, I used to have all this stuff memorized. Even the second string walk-on kickoff specialists. Evan Morris, Evan Morris played 2 games last year and had 11 kickoffs in those 2 games against Western Michigan and Arizona State. I'm not sure what happened, but didn't play the rest of the year. Did he get hurt? Some of you, see, this is where you guys are sharper than I am. I think Evan Morris might have gotten hurt, right? So then Cole Haan kicked the rest of the year. I'd be happy to do the research if they just tell me when rehearsal is. I'd get it all this stuff done. I would have gone over this type of thing when I go over the questions. I rehearse or I do some fact checking of my initial answers to see if my initial answers add up with reality. Today, I just did the hockey rink relay. I looked through these questions last week. I haven't looked through them again in 7 days. And you just caught me making an error a little bit there. Evan Morris, I should have known more about that. But 2 games last year, didn't lose a year of eligibility. 6'5" out of Ovid Elsie, retains freshman status, is a redshirt freshman this year. 6'5", 235. You may remember when he committed to Michigan State as a walk-on. We did a story on him and his coach, and when we looked at him, kind of a freak of nature type of guy. 6'5" with a lot of leg swing, and I think he's the guy for kickoffs this year. Kicked off 2 games last year and then sat out the rest of the year. Evan Morris injury. Looking it up, I'm not seeing anything for an injury right now. Anyway, Evan Morris, that's my picked kickoff guy this year. Field goals, Matt Coughlin. Last year, 22 out of 32 with a long of 47. Had a great freshman year a couple years ago. Has been on again, off again the last couple of years. Has ability. He had the big game winner. Was that against Penn State a couple of years ago, or as a freshman? Been a little bit up and down. They need Matt Coughlin to steady that ship and be the go-to guy. And if things get a little bit iffy, you've got Olsen coming in as a freshman. But I think it's Coughlin till further notice. But, usually seniors, in recent decades have done pretty well, but you can't assume that'll be the case. Remember, there was that one year with John L. Smith, year 1 or year 2, when they went through Matt Hoy, was that his name? John Goss, a few others. A lot of guys having trouble. 1993 is a season I always remember. Stoyanovich came in, supposed to be a good, steady kicker, and just had some Steve Sachs issues, just mental blocks, missed some field goals, cost him some games. And I think he remained the kicker all year just because he was the guy. Coughlin, I don't see him going south in that regard, but you never know for sure. I think he'll be okay. Last year, 22 out of 32 percentage-wise. That puts him in the bottom third of the Big Ten. I mean, you got to expect Coughlin to be at least in the middle of the pack of the Big Ten in terms of field goal percentage accuracy. Coughlin, you need a good year out of him. You need a good year out of all these guys, right? Because the cupboard is not tremendously stacked. You need Coughlin to be the best version of himself. As D'Antonio always used to say, you need your seniors to have their best season. John L. Smith used to say that too. You need your seniors to have their best season. If Matt Coughlin has the best season of his career this year, it might be worth a win and a half for Michigan State. Because he was excellent as a freshman. If he can exceed that, that'll make the difference in at least one game. That's what you got to be hoping for. Punter, you got Mitchell Crawford coming in, transfer from UTEP. His stats were not that great at UTEP. Something like 39 yards per punt. Tyler Hunt, walk on, the guy with the fair catch last year, or a kick return, from Gobles, Michigan. I think that's in the southwest corner of the state. Probably grew up a Notre Dame fan. I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth. There's a lot of them down there, though. Tyler Hunt, last year, actually 2 years ago, when Hartbarger was injured, Hunt did better than all the rest. Had 36 punts, averaged 40.1 yards per punt, and then he became injured. Did he finish, or did Will Pristup finish? Will Pristup was a kid from Florida, a walk-on. Pristup had 27 punts, and I think Bryce Behringer had 15, and they all got injured. I mean, Hartbarger was injured. Pristup was injured. I can't remember if it was Hunt or Behringer who were injured. Rocky Lombardi tried it. They were using 5 punters. Anyway, that year, Tyler Hunt was the best of the backups. Now Hartbarger's graduated, of course. Bryce Behringer entered the transfer portal. Well, Pristup entered the transfer portal, transferred to Nebraska, played last year. Behringer entered the transfer portal. Remember, Behringer was the guy that went to Illinois as a preferred walk-on. Didn't end up playing there, was just a regular student. Came back to Michigan State as a regular student, and then figured out, what the heck, I'll maybe look into going out for the football team. Went out. I think they didn't have him as part of the original, expanded roster. But they said, don't leave town. Give us your phone number. Let us know how we can contact you. And then when those injuries happened, they contacted him, and he was starting game 3 or whatever in the season 2018. Behringer punted a little bit. Hunt did a little bit. Pristup was leaving. Hartbarger was coming back as getting a 6th year of eligibility. So Behringer's like, you know what? I can punt. I might enter the transfer portal again, which he did. Must not have gotten many takers. Came back. So Behringer's back. He'll compete for it. He's competing for it right now. Mitchell Crawford, the transfer from UTEP, competing for it right now. Tyler Hunt competing for it right now. I'm guessing Tyler Hunt. I know Mitchell Crawford gave up a gig at UTEP to come here. I'm just going by the numbers. Tyler Hunt, I don't know. Don't etch that one in stone. I'll say this. By November, I think Tyler Hunt might prove to be the best punter. I'm not sure he starts right away. Bryce Behringer was the guy from Pontiac, Notre Dame that transferred in from Illinois, transferred out. Now he's sticking around. Might not be room for all those punters. Got another Australian coming in too, right? Anyway, let's go over to the chat area. See what kind of questions we have brewing over here from the people watching live right now. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And as we creep toward football season, I want you guys to make a habit of coming here, a bad habit of coming in here and drinking all kinds of things that are not good for you. Some things are good for you, though, in moderation, though, right? Red wine is good. A beer or two is good. So stay away from gasoline is what I'm saying. The rest of it is fair game. Rob South checking in first, as he usually does. Mr. Bone Man, Brad Fashenko, Gordon Tenona batting cleanup, Ed Francis saying hi all. Mr. Bone Man says October 24th seems like a long way away. That's what's going to be crazy. They're going to play October 24th. They're going to play Rutgers. They're going to beat Rutgers and be 1-0. Then you're getting ready for Halloween. You're getting ready for Michigan Week, Game 2. And that's just going to be, like my friend Mad Dog DeMarco used to say, the Maylocks Bowl. Michigan will be coming off a loss to Minnesota. And I don't know. Maybe. Michigan's got talent. Everybody knows that. But Minnesota with Tanner Morgan at quarterback. I just think Minnesota's going to have an edge at the quarterback position for that game. Now, Minnesota's got some other distractions going on right now that have not hit the news headlines, but there's some distractions there. Minnesota was good last year. They won their bowl game. Can they handle the success? Michigan had a pretty good year last year, but they don't feel good about last year. So they've got talent, and they're going to be driven like hell to be better this year, as they should. And they have to worry about dampening down the diva factor, because they've got a diva problem there. Because every time they get a recruit, it gets amplified, and the old theory is, the old axiom is, you have people reading their own press clippings. And there in Ann Arbor, they will fill you up with press clippings to your detriment and the detriment of the program. They've been good. I'm not doubting that. They've been a pretty good team. But I think everybody would agree that they've not won at a level commensurate with the type of NFL talent they've had. Everybody knows that. They've done less with more than anybody. It's partly because of the diva factor. Anyway, Michigan's got to overcome that diva factor. Now Milton's got to handle his press clippings. Going to Minnesota, I understand you're not going to have any home fans there. But, hey, man, Minnesota had a slick operation last year. Very efficient. And this college football season, we are seeing vast swings in terms of who's ready and who's not. And it began with that Navy-BYU game when BYU just shut them down because Navy didn't tackle much in the preseason. And you're seeing Miami was ready, Florida State. Florida State problems and then other problems. I mentioned it here a week or so ago that they had some distractions that have not hit the headlines. And it wasn't necessarily about Norvell testing positive to COVID. It was COVID-related, but no specifics there. But just a lot of reasons for those players at Florida State just to not buy into the coaching staff. And you're seeing what's happening there. And you saw Kansas State lose to, who'd they lose to? Arkansas State. And then Kansas State turns around and beats Oklahoma. Texas Tech almost lost to who? Houston Baptist? Or was it Dallas Baptist? One of those baseball schools. All those baseball schools were beating Big 12 teams left and right. Coastal Carolina, Louisiana Lafayette, Dallas Baptist. I think it was Dallas Baptist. And Texas Tech, I think it was Texas Tech, should have lost to Dallas Baptist. Then 2 weeks later, Texas Tech turns around and should have beaten Texas, the Longhorns. Came real close to Oklahoma and Texas both losing last week. And then, of course, Mississippi State with LSU. Didn't shock me. Surprised me. Did not shock me. Did not shock me. LSU lost all that talent, and they had all the press clippings this for a solid 11 months in Baton Rouge, where they're very good at feeding you and serving refreshments. Toast of the town, Orgeron, all that stuff. New defensive coordinator, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback. Then you're coming in against Mike Leach. And I heard a lot of people, including Chris Childers, who I listen to a lot. I love their show on Sirius Satellite with Rick Neuheisel. Childers talking about Mike Leach is not going to work in the SEC, and he wasn't the only one. A lot of those SEC people, that Mike Leach offense is not going to work in the SEC. In long term, maybe it won't. But I've tweeted, some of you may have seen, about 2 hours before the game, before the Mississippi State LSU game, I tweeted that quote, Mike Leach's offense won't work in the SEC. And I said, we heard the exact same thing about Urban Meyer back about, 10, 12 years ago. The Urban Meyer Utah offense, maybe 15 years ago. Utah, what Urban Meyer did at Utah would never work in the SEC. Never work against SEC defensive linemen. How'd that turn out? Urban Meyer did pretty good at Florida. Mike Leach, his offense will never work in the SEC. Well, you know what? It kind of did work 20 years ago when he was offensive coordinator at Kentucky when they had Tim Couch. So, I mean, but did I think they were going to break the all-time SEC passing record for a game with Costello, the transfer from Stanford? No. But I'm not shocked that they gave him a good game. Pleasantly surprised that they won the game. Anyway, Austin Courier says, I watched Hamp Fay's high school game on Friday night. His running back ran for a crazy amount of yards. He had a couple of nice throws and a run for a touchdown. Did you see any of it, Jim? Yes. Went over it again today. And his team, Fort Worth All Saints Episcopal. They defeated a team called Azle High School. I think the score was 70-50. And Hampton Fay, let me see. I had his stats. This is another thing. I was going to have his stats ready so I could sound like a professional broadcaster and just rip off those stats. Let's see here. Let's see if I can find it inside of 12 seconds. Probably not. Dead air. I'm failing. Anyway, one of you guys can go to the bunker. Here it is. Here it is right here. Okay. Hampton Fay, 15 out of 23 for 125 yards with a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown. Yeah, the passing touchdown was a nice slant into traffic between the corner and the safety. And the video feed, there were no replays, unfortunately. So we never really saw an end zone view of that. And, the feed it's a one camera. Well, they did have an end zone camera, but they never showed replays. But ball came out quickly on that one, and I suspect that might have been a really good throw, but didn't get a second look at it. You rewind it, look at it again, and you can't really get a total good look at it. But the touchdown, I think it was about 12 yards. That was a nice one. And the score was 57-50 at that point with like 8 minutes to go. And I think it was 1st and 10 at the 12-yard line or so. Big play at a big moment. Yeah, they went on to win 70-50, but at that moment, it was tight. That one was a good throw. I thought in the first half, he was a little rusty here and there because you remember he only played 3 games last year and then had a labrum injury in his shoulder. The year before that, as a sophomore, he was a wide receiver at a different school, at Aledo High School, a team that won the 5A state championship at Texas. So as a sophomore, he played wide receiver for a state championship team. So the guy can run deceptively fast, but missed the last, I think, 7 games of last season, rehab, coming back, worked out, COVID, all that stuff, quarantine. So anxious and eager and antsy to get back out there. Misfired on some throws early. There was like a little curl that he kind of threw into the ground, and they ran a tunnel screen to the field side. And he kind of left that one low and outside for an incompletion. Not 125 yards on 15 completions. A lot of his throws were little short hitches. A lot of short hitches and screens, but a handful of really encouraging throws. There was one throw, an 18-yarder where Hampton Fay dropped back, looked over to his left, nothing there, flushed, exit the pocket, came out this way to the backside, and his receiver, Patterson, impromptu breaks it off, and Fay, on the run off one leg, delivered a real nice pass, like 20 yards or so. Some creativity there. Freelanced it. A nice one. Actually, was that the one? Anyway, I'll have to go back over it again. Too much dead air here. I apologize about that. But a lot of swing passes for short gains. The touchdown run he had was zone read keep. And for a big guy, pretty nice initial burst. Deceptive burst, but covers ground. And looked pretty good on that touchdown to have that element in his game. And, last year, if you watched his film as a junior, there was one quarterback keeper where he kept it for about 90 yards. Looked athletic on that one, former wide receiver. In this game earlier, he's also their punter, Hampton Fay, for his high school team. Michigan State commitment, in case you guys don't know that. I think the second possession of the game, he has the option, depending on numbers, to keep it or throw it or punt it. And he saw the numbers, rolled out. I don't know if he does a rugby punt. I didn't see him do that on this thing. They didn't punt much because they scored 70 points. But he kept it on like a 4th and 6, dove, and came up short. But exciting to watch him play like that. He missed an open receiver once on a slant and go. Might have been like the first play of the third drive of the second half. Had him wide open by about 3 steps and overthrew him by about 5 yards. So I'm sure he'd like to have that one back. Otherwise, he would have had about 190 yards passing. Let's see. Started getting into some RPOs in the 6th drive of the second half. There was one a deep one that was good also. Didn't throw deep a lot, but there was one that went for about 40 yards in the air. That I thought looked for it. But I look forward to watching him more again this weekend. That was the 3rd drive of the game. Second in line, looked left, flushed out. And Ben Patterson, again, about 40 yards in the air. That was a 3rd read to the backside. Got some run after the catch on that one, but Patterson's a pretty good receiver, 40 yards. But you mentioned the running back. The running back's committed to SMU. His name's Monte Dawson. Little guy, probably looks like he's about 5'8" or so. Reminds me of a cross between Damian Anderson, if you remember him at Northwestern years ago. And somebody on our message board said he reminded them of DeAndre Cobb. And first time I watched the game, I'm like, man, that's saying a lot because DeAndre Cobb had crazy burst. I'm not sure that, this Monte Dawson doesn't quite have that much burst, but he's going against a good opponent in Houston, in Texas, and had a lot of burst. Maybe not DeAndre Cobb, but DeAndre Cobb did not have Damian Anderson moves. So this guy, I would put him somewhere between Damian Anderson and DeAndre Cobb, and that's saying a lot. 3-star running back, Texas, committed to SMU. You know what? Michigan State is set at running back, but if they weren't, it would not surprise me a bit if Michigan State had gotten in on that little dude. I think he's going to be a good one at SMU. 2 offensive linemen going to Alabama. Interesting team to watch. Yes, I watched them. Thanks for asking about Hampton Fay. We will continue to watch them. I'm not sure where they are rankings-wise, where they might fit into the statewide picture there, but we'll be checking it out. Let's go back to the mailbag. Ryan from Jackson, Michigan says, Jim, besides Xavier Henderson at safety, who do you think will start at the other 3 positions in the secondary, the Michigan State secondary? Shaq Brown at corner comes back, added a little bit of weight. It will be interesting to see how that weight gain translates. And today, Jaden Reed had good things to say about Shaq Brown. The other corner position is going to be a good competition. Kalen Gervin got a start against Ohio State, didn't go that well. Trey Person is at safety. He's added a little bit of weight. But now you mix in Harlan Barnett as the new defensive backs coach, and he's going to be working with these guys. He's been working with these guys. Someone in there is going to elevate their stock. Somebody's going to come out of this better than we knew they were. Dominic Long got a shot at corner. Barnett had a hand in recruiting Dominic Long. Good frame, good straight line speed. Tried corner, tried safety, moved him back to corner, gave him a look. Now he's back at safety. Like I said in the VCast on Friday with Dominic Long, it's my understanding things did not look that great initially, so he's back at safety. Gave it a look, didn't work out. So Shaq Brown, Kalen Gervin's in there. I'm hearing Davion Williams is looking better. Out of Belleville. Good athlete. It's taken a while for him to get a good harness on everything mentally, but I'm hearing good things. The pads go on this Wednesday. That's when the coaches will start getting a better idea of how the players are looking. You know, Julian Barnett's over there, moving over from wide receiver. I think he'll be a factor there at some point in his career this year, possibly. Later on, I think for sure, one of the better all-around athletes in the program. But I'm guessing Shaq Brown, and I wouldn't be surprised if you get a little musical chairs going on there with Kalen Gervin, Davion Williams, maybe even Julian Barnett. By November, I wouldn't be shocked if it's Davion Williams. That's just based on a couple things I've heard, but nothing that I've seen. I'm just betting on a rise there a little bit. Kalen Gervin, though, maybe Kalen Gervin get coached by Harlan Barnett, and we might see a completely different Kalen Gervin. Entirely possible. Kind of an exciting possibility there. Safety, Xavier Henderson. I'll go with Trey Person. Keep an eye on Michael Dowell. Played in that dime a little bit last year. And continue to hear good things about Tate Halleck. Not sure when or where or how or why he's going to work into it. Wouldn't be surprised if he has a role at some point. And Dominic Long is back there knocking on the door as well. Question number 5, Bullfrog 341 says, what do you make of the extra weight gains for some of our defensive tackles? Jalen Hunt and Mallory. You know, we went over this ad nauseum last week over at the live stream, SpartanMag Live open mic night. But Jalen Hunt is a guy the previous staff was excited about. Detroiter who was committed to Iowa. Michigan State brought him in last minute. They're happy to have him. He was looking pretty good at 311 pounds last year in practice. He's up 19 pounds to 330. It's a big kid. All these weight gains at defensive tackle, we talked about it. You know, I'm just wondering if they're inching toward having the possibility, the flexibility of playing a standard 3-4, a conventional 3-4 with a nose tackle, zero shade, and defensive ends of the 5 technique, and 2 stand-up outside linebackers. Not every down, but just to have that in the repertoire. You have to have excellent talent if you're going to have that and standard 4-3 talent. Really good talent if you've got players that can do both. Maybe Jalen Hunt can do both. Maybe at 330 he's rotund to be a nose tackle, zero shade, but also quick enough to be a nose tackle 1 shade or even a 3 technique in a 1-gapping 3-4, as opposed to a 1-gapping 4-3 as opposed to a 2-gapping. A 2-gapping 3-4 as opposed to a 1-gapping 4-3. And if you play a 4-3, you don't have to 1-gap. More teams are 2-gapping out of the 4-3 these days. I was watching Kansas State last year, and I'd see some guys in the line doing a 2-gap and some guys doing a 1-gap, or maybe the 2-gappers were just kind of heavy to one side, not maybe a full 2-gap. Patriots have done that in the NFL. You've seen Saban start to go that way a little bit. Not sure, but Deshaun Mallory up 22 pounds from 318 to 345. 345. That has nose tackle 3-4 written all over it. He's a younger guy, so maybe they're inching toward that in the future, which might be a reason why they decided to offer Derek Harmon, the big heavyweight defensive tackle from Detroit Loyola. Watched some of his film this week against Dearborn Divine Child, and Harmon looked pretty good. I thought he was looking really good, interestingly good, at the Sound Mind Sound Body Camp t-shirt and shorts against Divine Child. Pretty good. I was kind of expecting even a little more. But he was, I mean, when he hit people, he hit them a ton. But, you know, playing a little bit high. His feet are good. A lot to work with there. And he's a big human being. And I think, you know, strong, of course. He's strong. The quickness is just house money with Derek Harmon, the kid from Detroit Loyola. He's big enough, strong, plays strong. You get quickness out of that guy, then you're getting into, like, that's gravy. That's like Gilbert Brown. Like, you're that big and that quick? Okay. I compared him to Barksdale in the past. Or the big dude that went to Ohio State that was teammates with Will Golston. But I think he might be more of a Gilbert Brown type. I'm not saying he's going to be Gilbert Brown, but Gilbert Brown came out of Detroit, overlooked, went to Kansas, played for the Packers, had a great career. But he kind of has that Gilbert Brown belly potential. I'm talking about Harmon. Anyway, Michigan State going after Harmon and putting this weight on Mallory, putting this weight on Hunt, makes me think 3-4 might be happening at some point in the future. Maybe not going totally to a 3-4, but having the ability to flex back and forth in the future. So Bullfrog asks me, what do I make of it? That's what went through my head. I've not heard that anywhere. And if that were the case, I'm sure they wouldn't be telling anybody. If they're planning to do that against Rutgers, of course they're not going to tell anybody. But you're asking me, what do I make of it? And I assume, Bullfrog, you're wondering the same thing, the way you pose the question. What do I make of the extreme weight gains of some of our defensive tackles, he says. That's what I think. Question number 6. Hey, Jim, I figure running back is probably lower on our list of worries, but what are you hearing about the depth at that position? Excuse me while I tweet. I'm live at... Sorry about that. Got to do the promotions here, trying to get a bigger crowd just to see what kind of craziness we can create. All right, Dan says, I figure running back is probably lower on our list of worries, but what are you hearing about depth at that position? I really liked the little that we saw of Brandon Wright last year. And I apologize about the dead air and doing two things at once. But hey, it's commercial free also, right? I'm sure that you watch or listen to a lot of talk shows and it's like, damn commercial, turn the channel. Well, I don't want you to turn the channel when that happens here, but we're commercial free. So for now anyway, one of these days I might have some advertorial readers here and there. If you want me to advertise your product, send me an email. You know where to find me. And I'll consider it. But only if I believe in your product. If I believe in your product, like Deal's Orchard Cider Mill, then I'll do it. Or Uncle John's Cider Mill, then I'll do it. Quality Dairy Apple Cider is quality apple cider. None of those are paid advertisers. Although they should be. Because I like them. All right, running back. He says, I really liked the little we saw of Brandon Wright last year. You know, Brandon Wright had 18 carries last year, averaged like 2.7 yards per carry. I think I mentioned this in the live stream. I loved his film as a junior. Detroit Spartan says free cider. I don't know what he's getting at there. Although I think he was at Deal's Orchard Cider Mill this weekend. Brandon Wright loved his high school film as a junior. And as a senior, I thought it was good, but not as good as his junior film. And as a freshman at Michigan State, okay, freshman running backs sometimes are not great right off the bat. I was expecting a little more from Brandon Wright. I know might be unfair expecting that much from a freshman, but I just remember that junior film and just being really impressed with it. And, he might have broken a tackle once last year, might have made one guy miss, 18 carries. It was kind of okay. But then Brandon Wright's gone out now, and he's added 17 pounds. Brandon Wright checking in at a hefty, ready 240 pounds. Well, I don't know if it's ready. I've not seen him. He's got the frame that can carry a 240. I think he's 6'3". So I don't know what that's going to look like. It might look great. It might look slowish. I don't know. Again, he had moves as a junior, and some of those moves, from what I saw in the film, the agility was not quite as great as it was as a junior. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. Sometimes guys peak in terms of their agility as teenagers. I've seen it before. With Brandon Wright, you hope that's not the case. Brandon Wright does have the ability to play some defense, though. But anyway, Dan from Chicago is bullish on Brandon Wright. I'm going to reserve judgment and see what he looks like at 240. You've got Elijah Collins coming back, added a couple more pounds. He's up to 220, gained 988 yards last year, 4.5 per carry. Anthony Williams last year, 118 yards, 3.1 yards per carry. Anthony Williams, the coaches loved him last year. That's why he played as a true freshman. They loved him in practice, but the things they saw in him in practice never quite translated to the field on game day, except for a couple of carries in the first half of the bowl game. And you see that a lot in bowl games. Either 3 or 4 weeks off, guys can reset a little bit, and you see guys take a jump with their ability during the bowl game. Saw that with Anthony Williams. Saw what the coaches were talking about. A little bit of burst, a little make you miss, nice 8-yard gain here and there. So Williams now adds 14 pounds. He goes from 191 to 205. In the past, I think at Michigan State, there have been running backs that have added weight, and it's hurt them. Lost a little bit of speed. With Anthony Williams, it's a different strength staff. I'm more open-minded about it. Maybe the extra weight won't hurt him. Maybe Anthony Williams at 205 is going to look good. I don't know. I'm intrigued to see that. Between Anthony Williams and Brandon Wright, they're going to look different physically. Might they look like really good players? It's possible. True sophomores. It's going to be a good competition. Talking with Elijah Collins tonight, he says, man, he loves the running back room. He loves being a leader. He loves bringing those guys around, bringing them along. He says it's a competition. They get along well. He gets along well with Connor Hayward. He said, sometimes people assume that me and Connor Hayward hate each other because we're competing. He says, no, they've been good friends since the beginning, and he's bringing the young guys along, and it's going to be a competition. And Elijah Collins says those guys getting better is just going to make him better. So he's got a healthy attitude about it, and it is a pretty good stable. Plus, incoming freshman Jordan Simmons out of Georgia is in there. Not sure what he's going to be. He's going to add something to it. Connor Hayward back. Last year, 24 carries, 3.3 yards per carry. Connor Hayward got a lot of playing time as a freshman 3 years ago, and then fell behind Elijah Collins last year, transferred out after 4 games to preserve redshirt status, entered the transfer portal, and my understanding, didn't quite get all of the scholarship interest he assumed he was going to get. Asked to come back. Mel Tucker welcomed him back, which surprised me a little bit because this is a program that needs scholarship space. Mel Tucker didn't owe him anything. Looked at him as a former contributor, feels like they can help him. A lot of people have wondered, can he be an H-back type of guy? I wonder about that too. Michigan State uses the tight end a lot. Jay Johnson plans to, not only the tight end, but also a motion move H-back as a blocking back, as kind of an H, sometimes in the B gap off the line of scrimmage. Can Hayward block from that angle sufficiently? He's got some width. He's only about 6 feet, not the longest arms. He's been a good was a wide receiver in high school. He is a good pass receiver. So you can do some creative things with him, potentially. So on that hand, I can understand why they wanted to bring him back and experiment a little bit. Is there a chance Hayward becomes the feature back at Michigan State? I don't think so. I think that's Elijah Collins. And then I think Anthony Williams. I think Anthony Williams has a good chance to be the number 2 back if he continues to do the things that impressed the previous staff, and now he's doing it 14 pounds heavier and with more experience, a feel for the game, and having looked good in that bowl game. I think Anthony Williams could be a good sidekick for Elijah Collins. Hayward, maybe a third down guy, specialist guy, special situation guy, special package guy. Yeah. Every down feature guy, I doubt it. Connor Hayward was pretty good as a freshman in some ways, had a good kickoff return once or twice. But when he became the feature running back in 2018, there were just too many times when his vision was just not, he just did not have that knack that you need. A play was blocked well, and he bounced it incorrectly, including one time you might remember in the Nebraska game, a play that really could have turned the game around when they lost at Nebraska with the Snow Flurries and Rocky Lombardi playing. There was a play that the offensive line blocked it well, which sadly is kind of rare that year or last year, but blocked it really well. Could have been a game-changing play. I think it was midway through the fourth quarter. Michigan State was up by maybe 6 or 3 or something, and I think he bounced it outside when he should have just taken it where it was designed to be run. But anyway, the vision was just not that great. His heart was in the right place, wanted to do well, but at times like that, you saw, well, this is a wide receiver trying to become a running back. Maybe trying to become a running back too early in his career. Was Jeremy Langford a receiver in high school? I can't remember. But Langford didn't start getting it really until his 4th year in the program. Let's go back over to the chat area. See what kind of fun's going on over there. Old Tuck, the bell cow, and he was late. Old cow, late. Old cow. Old Tuck, late. Detroit Spartan says, I'm just kidding. I'm glad you're here, Old Tuck. And Cartero, I'm glad you're here too. I was just joking with you about being late. It's great that you're here live. And if you can't be here live, watch the replay on demand, right? Anytime you want. We appreciate those. Appreciate those numbers. Give us a thumbs up for sure. Detroit Spartan said, I tried to realize that bet in a big way, but Vegas wouldn't take it. I think you're talking about the Rocky Lombardi bet. You know, that particular prop bet was advertised. I got an email from somebody. The Rocky under bet? Okay. You just texted to me here. I see it on the screen. I mentioned that to people because people that are watching this and it's not live, sometimes the chat comes up, sometimes it does not. So I'm letting the people know that Detroit Spartan just acknowledged, yes, he's talking about the under bet. That I can't remember, you know, somethingbet.com, some website sent us as a press release, sent me as a sports writer, these are our prop bets. Feel free to talk about them or post them. So I did. Something to talk about, right? I think if you go to that place, you can get that bet. Did you go to that specific place? You can chat back and let me know if you went to that one. Excuse me. If not, if they're not taking that bet, okay, you didn't try them. He says, no, sir. Go to that particular website and you should be able to get that bet. If you can't, then I'll email the dude and say, hey, you said you got this bet or you got these odds, prop bet. My guys are trying to get some action on it. I don't condone that. I don't bet. I'm not a bettor. I don't gamble. As I've said, I don't gamble because it's too much of a gamble. It's too much of a gamble. I bet on a horse in the Kentucky Derby once when I was in Vegas about 8 years ago. I've been to Vegas many times. I have plenty of fun in Vegas without gambling. My friends gamble. My wife will gamble. I root them on. I don't care. I don't do it. Just don't do it. Anyway, I'm not preaching. I'm just saying I'm throwing it out there. But if you wanted that action and you didn't get it, I'll call the dude. I'll email the dude and say, hey, what's up? I thought you said you were taking this one. I don't know. Detroit Spartan says Scout Team Player of the Week for Indiana. What was who? Rocky Lombardi? I don't know what you're talking about. Ty Garland is in. Comp did get a haircut. I did get a haircut. He's saying Peyton Thorne was Scout Team Player of the Week. I did get a haircut. And in my current follicle situation, I can't really afford a bad haircut. But I got an overly aggressive, overzealous haircut today. And I kind of go to this one place where it's kind of a roulette wheel on who you get to cut your hair. And nice lady. Hope she's not watching. But when I heard that I drew her, I was like, oh man, uh-oh. And yeah, so you gotta kind of keep it. You have to be pragmatic and a conservationalist with my hair. Otherwise, it could very easily end up looking like Paul Schaefer. Mr. Bone Man. Yeah, it was a haircut. It's my second haircut since quarantine. Quarantine was March 11th. Wife cut my hair at like week 7. Cut my hair again at like week 14. Then I got my hair cut. Then she wasn't doing haircuts anymore. Did a solid job, but she doesn't want to invest that type of time in me. She does enough stuff for all of us that, hey, go get your haircut somewhere else, husband. So I did. And I went to the roulette place and got a new lady. She was good, but she was just talking too much. I don't mind talking. But in the COVID situation, I'd rather not have someone talking who's like about 25 years old and probably going to all the East Lansing bars and stuff. I don't need someone talking with all the aerosol coming. I know she's got a mask. I got a mask. I don't mind talking during a regular situation, but not during the COVID thing. And I'm not like Mr. COVID afraid guy at all. But in that situation, I don't need that. I don't need that talking going on. But she was good. She did a pretty good job. And I didn't get any negative comments from you guys about that haircut. So here we are 7-8 weeks later. Used to be 5 weeks for a haircut now, right? Now, older I get, it's not growing back so great. And lengthening it out longer. So 7-8 weeks, boom, back in the roulette wheel. And I got kind of a clunker today. Sweet gal. She cut my kid's hair once a couple years ago too. Didn't turn out so great. I hope she's not watching. God. It's not her fault. There's not much to work with up here. There's not much to work with up here. The place where I used to get my hair cut was in Lansing. Tori cut my hair. Tori was great. She used to be, some of you might remember Bohemian Barbers, downtown East Lansing. She was great. She had a place downtown Lansing. Went there, but it was just too far of a drive. So I stopped going there just because it was, plus she's so good that you have to get like an appointment reservation. What do you call it? Like 5 weeks ahead of time to get in. And I don't know what I'm doing 5 hours from now, let alone 5 weeks from now or 5 days, 5 weeks from now. So getting an appointment and driving over there, I finally just said, I'm just going to spin my luck around here. But Tori used to have a sign in her studio that said, I'm a beautician, not a magician. I'm a beautician, not a magician. So when you got hair like mine, I'm getting pretty thin back here, and I got the power alleys going deep, Paul Schaefer style, heading toward Captain Steubing. So don't be shocked when that happens someday. But when you got the Captain Steubing situation going on here, that's when you realize that she's not a magician. There's only so much you can do. So I'm not ripping on the lady today too much because she's not a magician. I'm not exactly Eric Estrada or or Jim Morrison or Eddie Vedder with the hair over here, So I'm not bringing much game to the table there. So beggars can't be choosers. Choosers can't be beggars. All right. Mr. Bowman says when things get back to normal and football is all the way back. Do you think D'Antonio will ever come to a game, and what kind of reception will he receive? Yes, he will come to a game, and he'll have a great reception, and he's going to like it. And he's going to love it, and it's going to make him want to come back more frequently. And Mel Tucker will treat him like a king, and that'll be good too. And I look forward to seeing D'Antonio around, probably in the press box, probably down to the Huntington level, I'm guessing. Hoping to see him. Expect to see him at basketball games down there where he usually sits. Expect to see him at volleyball games, hockey games. I think he's going to be a fixture once everything passes. But right now, for a lot of reasons, it's best for some people to stay low, right? Baseball games, too. Now, baseball games at MSU have so much potential. If that season gets lengthened out like the NCAA is talking about, McLean Stadium's such a beautiful place, got the lights now. If they can creep that season deeper into the late May, could be a real nice place to go. Be real nice if that program gained a level of consistent excellence. Man, that'd be great. College baseball is a great product. It's great. It's down south. A couple of Big Ten teams are good once in a while. Michigan was good last year. But I like college baseball. It's team baseball. Al Pearlstein. I don't have my glasses on. Got to put on the readers. That's how old I am. I feel like Captain Kangaroo or something. I lost my place. Al Pearlstein. Yeah, I read that right. Al Pearlstein says, looks like we got a lot of talent and depth at wide receiver. Probably made the decision to move Barnett back to DB easier to make. Yes, it did. The combination of a nice little smattering of talent in wide receiver, not as good as it was in 2013 when they had, their redshirting Benny Fowler. They had redshirted him in 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. They had redshirted Keith Mumphrey, and of course they had Keyshawn Martin around in 2012. All kinds of good talent at wide receiver back then. They had NFL guys on the second string. Not as good as that, but pretty good. You've got Jaden Reed in there now, obviously. And, Cody White left. It'd be nice to have him back in if his head were completely engaged. But, with not only did they have pretty good talent with Trey Mosley, they had pretty good talent at wide receiver, but also a need at corner, and Barnett was recruited primarily as a DB to begin with. They had him at wide receiver last year because they needed him at wide receiver because they were lacking wide receivers last year, injuries and so forth. So he played wide receiver because he's that bad of a cat. Yeah, it's not my thing, but I'll play some wide receiver, see what happens. Helped a little bit. Looked a little bit raw at times. Now back to DB. Could really get some good traction there. Let me zip through the mailbag and then back over to the chat area. And I've already gone against my resolution, my objective, my goal statement is stay under an hour. I already blew that, talking about haircuts and other nonsense. Question number 7, Griff from Hill Valley. What kind of access do you expect to get over the next few weeks with players and coaches? How much do you think we will learn before game 1? Also, if I may, do you expect Tucker to announce a quarterback well before the Rutgers game, or do you expect it to be a game time announcement? I'm guessing game time announcement. Why clue in the defense or the opponent? Why clue them in? Especially if Peyton Thorne becomes the starter and they know that 2 weeks before the opening game, you don't mention it at all. You have them burn as much prep as possible on Rocky Lombardi. So no access to practice for obvious reasons. In that complex, it is a bubble, can't go in. No face-to-face interviews. All interviews are going to be Zoom, which is too bad. It's convenient in some ways, but I used to really like going to interviews after practice. They might bring out 7 or 8 players. Conan Dyke would interview one. I would interview one. Rico Cooney would interview one. We compare notes afterwards and get a compilation of quotes. some video. And also, if I got one-on-one, I could wait. Other people would ask questions. Then when all the other reporters would go away, I might ask a question like, okay, what happened in practice today? Who looked good? Give me a little insight. Who made a play today? And sometimes those little nuggets really help our message board when I throw something out there like, yeah, Julian Barnett made a play on wide receiver today. Last year, I might have said something like that. This year, with less access, understandably, everything is Zoom. It's hard. You can't get those little one-on-one secret nugget questions. And it's not like a huge headline piece of information. I'm not trying to get like a huge scoop. I just try to get those little nuggets because our subscribers like those little nuggets, especially before the season starts. They want any indications they can get on who's looking good, who made a play in practice today. It provides an opportunity to give a little bit of real-time or almost real-time, like this happened in practice today, information. That's what our subscribers like. That's, they want to know those things in August during preseason camp. But that information is going to be hard to get because we won't have that access. Secondly, Tucker's going to want to keep things quiet. A first-year coach is more likely to keep things quiet than in any other time because there's more questions about what they're going to do. So access is less because of COVID. So we're going to have to be creative, try to find ways to provide coverage and insight that is worth keeping you guys around as SpartanMag subscribers. We certainly value all of our SpartanMag subscribers, and we're going to try our best to do a good job with that. Underground Bunker message board, I think it's a great place for exchange of information. I've mentioned about Dominique Long moving to safety. I mentioned that in the VCast the other day. Also, Peyton Thorne, hearing he's doing pretty well. Davion Williams doing pretty well. We will keep our ear to the ground on more developments, but things are quiet. And let's move to the next question. Hey, Jim, Terrence from Oklahoma City here. I'm curious, what specific improvements would you like to see on the offensive side of the ball in Mel Tucker's first year? Most of us do not anticipate a winning record this year, but perhaps there are areas of play that can make us feel good about the direction of the program. He says, for me, it's offensive line play, quarterback development, and overall efficient play calling. Curious about your thoughts. I think play calling is something that gets overblown a little bit. I think play calling is better when your quarterback is better, and your quarterback is better when your offensive line is better, and your wide receivers are healthy, and your tight ends are good. That's when play calling can work. Some play callers develop a rhythm when they've got good players against a good opponent, when to hit you with this and when to set up for that. But play calling was not great the last couple of years. Plays didn't work because the players weren't great. The Jimmies and Joes. Injuries, player development, evaluation, all those things. Player development includes strength and conditioning. It includes losing, assistant coaches at some positions. Various things. But play calling in itself, a lot of the plays Michigan State was calling were plays that other teams run. There also was not great cooperation between offensive staff members last year. You really rely on some of your assistant coaches to provide intel, in-game intel, help with pre-game game planning. That fell off also last year. So, efficient play calling, it's like D'Antonio says, that play that you guys ran that gained 20 yards? Why don't you call that play again? Sometimes they do call that play. Sometimes it goes for 1 yard. Play calling is overblown. Now, when you get to like the best teams and, both teams, like when Clemson plays Alabama, both teams have good quarterbacks, good offensive line, good running backs, NFL receivers, great defenses. Then if you can get into the right time to hit them with a play you've been saving, Chris Peterson style at Boise State, then it can make a difference, and it can make a difference on a big stage and get a lot of publicity and acclaim, and rightfully so. But for a middleweight program like Michigan State that was trying to get to 6-6, 7-5, play calling was not among the top 10 problems last year. It was Jimmy's and Joe's for a lot of reasons. Some of it was injuries. Some of it was recruiting. Some was recruiting evaluation, player development, other things. Not a bad team, but not competitive against Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. 500 type of team. At times, they were okay. Effort was always pretty good. All right. We are going to go. We are done with the mailbag portion of the festivities. Let's go back over to the chat area. Brad Fashenko says it was Friday night. That was a Tulsa game. Cartero checking in late. I already gave him his demerit. Brian V. Any chance Ricky White gets some kick return work? You know, Ricky White was good for Marietta last year. One of the better teams in Georgia. State champion. Great evaluation there. Michigan State getting in on Ricky White. And then Ricky White having a great senior year. Michigan State sticking with him sticking with Michigan State. Kid's got some bursts. That kid's career could go any which way. He could come in and be good and then be really good later in his career. Or if he comes in and doesn't get the... I don't know anything about him. But someone from that who comes in from that far away from home, if they don't get that early traction in their career, those are the type of guys you worry about transferring out. So Ricky White, a high ceiling, and if you're a Michigan State fan, you hope that guy gets some early success and sticks around because I think he's a plus talent. Kick return as a freshman, possible. I kind of doubt it. At some point in his career, possibly. I don't remember. You got me on this, Brian. Maybe you looked at his film. I've looked at his film. I watched their state title game. Did some good things all the time. I can't remember if he did much kick return wise or not. I could probably call up his bio. You hit me with a blind spot there. I've not thought of him in that regard. And off the top of my head, I don't know if he did a lot of that in high school or not. Mr. Bowman says, I'm liking the Adidas hoodie that you have on. Nice, thanks. This is from the Rivals camp. That's back when Adidas was a sponsor for the Rivals camp. So this was camp gear from back then. It's pretty good. James Bannon says, who do you see as the top 10 recruits in Michigan for 2022? Gates is in there. The DB from Grosse Pointe. People were kind of saying that he was getting beat by Gates in the sound mind camp, sound body. But that was just one rep, and Gates hit him with a double move. I thought Will Johnson's his name from Grosse Pointe. His dad played at Michigan. Michigan State's not going to get him. Will Johnson's at 6'2". I thought he had pretty good cruising speed for 6'2". I thought he moved pretty well. Some people wonder about his top-end speed. I don't know that it's not great. But a lot of these guys, I didn't see them this summer. I didn't go to the Sound Mind camp. I should have. I couldn't do it. I can't remember why, but I couldn't. But, the Van Summeren kid, the defensive tackle, who's committed to Michigan. I saw him last summer and impressed with his quickness and his motor as a defensive tackle. I'll be interested to see how that translates with pads at the college level because he looked different. He looked... some guys move at one speed, and then other people move at Charlie Chaplin speed. There's a big dude that moved at Charlie Chaplin speed. I was like, wow. But the rest of them, I've not seen them enough. We'll have to wait and see how this fall materializes. Michigan State's been on Dylan Tatum, the athlete from West Bloomfield. And then, Antonio Gates Jr. is going to be making a decision October 10th. Michigan State's right in there, if not the favorite. Jaden Mangum, number 14 in the state, might be a little better than that. 6'3", 185. State's got a shot there. In terms of who you're asking who the top 10 is, I'll have to see more of them. I need to see the junior film and then get into the camps next year. So that's down the road. All right. Young Feezy Baby says, what's the word on tight ends? Matt Dotson at this time last year put on 12 pounds. Did a few decent things last year. Injured 2/3 of the way through the season. Now he's taking weight off. He's got talent. He's a good route runner. Dotson's a senior. Senior. It's got to be happening for him now. 4-star talent, was a big recruiting victory. They need him to do some things. It's got to be now for Dotson. Gillison's in there. The other guys like Parks Gissinger, kind of a body, kind of maybe he can become a good blocker, but he lost a little weight. Burghorst, I think, could become a good all-around tight end. He's put on like 12 pounds, played last year as a true freshman. Now he puts on the freshman 15. He's been on the field, knows the speed. I'll be interested to see what can become of Burghorst. I'm not sure he's like a run after the catch type of guy, but good, should be a good, solid tight end. But Dotson's the guy that's got to come along. As far as what's the word right now, not hearing anything yet. Jesse Adams says, I think we will see more Anthony Williams and Jordan Simmons getting more playing time over Connor Hayward. Keep up the great work, Jim. I agree, Jesse. That's a good prediction. I don't doubt it. Detroit Spartan, U of M makes their own bed. No love lost there from Detroit Spartan. Jesse Adams, Jesse from Mount Pleasant says, do you think we will see more carries go to Anthony Williams or Jordan Simmons over Connor Hayward at running back other than Collins? Keep up the good work. That's what he meant to say. I will say Williams, yes. Simmons remains to be seen. Simmons, like all freshmen, has to show that he can provide pass protection. You have to be able to pass protect to get on the field. Because if you can't do it, and after a couple of games the opponent realizes, oh, that freshman can't protect the passer, then when he's in the game, what does that tell you? It tells you they're not passing the ball. You can't afford to have that much of a tip-off, especially on first and second down. So a freshman's got to be able to pass protect. That's why Elijah Collins did not play ahead of Connor Hayward and Ladarius Jefferson 3 years ago. Those guys could pass protect. They got on the field. Elijah Collins did not. But I told you here that Elijah Collins was the better pure runner, better than Hayward and Jefferson. And once Collins got his pass protection down, he surpassed those guys. Not a surprise to me, and it should not have been a surprise to you if you're listening and doing your SpartanMag reading. Joey Lawnicki says, have you discussed the potential Brandon Baldwin commitment from Independence Community College? No, I've not discussed it. Brandon Baldwin, an offensive tackle prospect, originally from Southfield, came up in a basketball family. His father, Vince Baldwin, was publisher of Prep Spotlight, involved with the family AAU team, and Nike grassroots. He was kind of a bigwig regionally in the Midwest for Nike grassroots basketball. Vince Baldwin. Know him pretty well. I haven't seen him in a long time, but always got along pretty well with him. Really well with him. He has another son that's at Rutgers right now. So I've reached out to him, waiting to hear back from him. I know Corey Robinson has heard from him a little bit. Corey Robinson doing a great job. Corey Robinson, the recruiting anchor for SpartanMag.com. Justin Thind doing a great job. All y'all. Conadite, great job. SpartanMag.com. The whole news organization. Great job. So Corey was in touch with Vince Baldwin a little bit. Brandon Baldwin, we saw some of the video that it was posted at the Underground Bunker message board. Not in pads, but some t-shirt and shorts stuff at Independence Community College. Moving pretty well, left tackle, moves well. Not a big surprise. Coming from a basketball background, he's got the ability to move his feet laterally, which helps a lot in pass protection. Has changed his body a little bit, can continue to add to that at 6'7". He's got a high ceiling of potential. So Michigan State's looked at him. They decided that they like him. Going the junior college route at offensive tackle. I'm sure that will excite a lot of you guys out there. So that's interesting news this week, and also reflective of Michigan State's current shortage of offensive tackles. Right? You've got A.J.R. Curry in there. And the interesting thing is, you got Jarvis is he a senior? Could have another year. Yeah, he's a senior, but could come back for another year. Behind them, you got Khalifa. It's been a little bit suspect. Dobbs, suspect as a tackle. So with Michigan State offering that scholarship to a junior college offensive tackle, this week, that tells you what the coaches think of their stockpile of offensive tackles in the program right now. Now it coincides with they've seen some of their talent more, Michigan State coaches have, in the last 2 weeks. Also with Independence Community College back on the field for practice, they've been able to release some individual film. The combination of the two, Michigan State's in the market. Brandon Baldwin is a JUCO guy with Detroit roots. It's all adding up right now. And yeah, I'd say Michigan State is probably in good position there. They probably want to see Independence play a game or two. Check that out in pads. I'd like to see that myself. But interesting recruitment that kind of came out of nowhere this week. Interesting one. Gordon Tanona says Mike Leach, Kirby Smart, and Will Muschamp. We're on the same staff at Valdosta State under Hal Mumme. Valdosta State was a power back then. That's my reference to Mike Leach when he was offensive coordinator for Kentucky, when Hal Mumme was the coach there, when Tim Couch was the quarterback. Hal Mumme, so he left Kentucky to go to Baylor, right? At the time, that seemed really weird. And some other coaches have made interesting moves, like Holgorsen leaving West Virginia to go to Houston. But Holgorsen had been at West Virginia long enough that one bad season and he would have been done. I know he had success there, interesting guy, but when you've been someplace long enough and you've not gotten to the mountaintop, all it takes is that one bad luck year and you get in big trouble. So Holgorsen, one step ahead of the posse. But yeah, Kirby Smart, Will Muschamp, good point. Gordon Tanona. Check out the big brain on Gordon Tanona. He's got the rundown. Good job, man. Appreciate that. Cartero917 says, do you think we land Jaden Denegal? Got a crystal ball this week. Denegal, offensive, he's a quarterback, Apple Valley, California. Ranked number 19 pro-style quarterback in the country by Rivals.com. He's a 3-star. Rivals.com writers have Utah as the favorite. He's a 2022, real early to tell right now. I'm not making any predictions on what's going to happen at quarterback for 2022 right now. Michigan State's in it. They're in on some others. Hard to tell right now. Detroit Spartans saying 3-4 has definitely been discussed. Yeah, Tucker has said that he's not married to either style of front, a 4-3 or a 3-4. He's done both. He's won with both. He's learned both of the pro ranks and the college ranks. Saban did both when he had enough talent to do both. So it wouldn't shock me that Michigan State wants to morph toward having the flexibility of doing both. And that might, with Kansas State last year, it was a 4-3, but sometimes Herbert would stand up. But it wouldn't change, the way the other three were lined up. You still had a 1 technique and a 3 technique and a 7. You didn't, when he stood up, they didn't shift to a 0 and 2 5s and 2 stand-up outside linebackers. But, so I'm not sure why he stood up other than maybe just pass rush quickness. I'll just have to ask Burton about that when I get a chance and ask Hazelton when I get a chance. But interviews are hard to come by right now. So, yeah, 3-4 has been discussed. I'm not shocked by that. Hazelton, how much 3-4 has he done in the past? I'm trying to look into that to see if he did that in Wyoming, but it's I'll have to find some old games. Rob South says Connor Hayward is going to be a difference maker this year. Rob South with a strong prediction. You might be right. I would be surprised. Maybe he can make a play here and there in a game. So if that is what it constitutes a difference maker, then he's got the potential to do it. I think he could be a red zone type of guy too. Detroit Spartan says, I think Connor's going to be glorified tackling dummy. I'm more along those lines. No disrespect to Connor Hayward. Detroit Spartan says, Ant Williams might surprise some people. Would not surprise me. Old Tuck says, CJ Hayes, do we think he has a chance to be trusted at Wide receivers 3 and 4. Is he a James Bradley type of guy? There's old Tug bringing up someone from the early 90s again as a whimsical comparison. One thing that James Bradley could do that C.J. Hayes cannot do is punt the heck out of the football. Punt. James Bradley, I think it was James Bradley. It's a wide receiver. One of those guys. There was a junior college transfer wide receiver from Florida. I thought it was James Bradley that competed with Josh Butland for the punting duties. And I saw Bradley at a scrimmage one day. Scrimmage was at Spartan Stadium. Left-footed punter. And I mean, boomed 3 of them. Out-punted Butland on that particular day. I think it was James Bradley. There was a wide receiver. But anyway, C.J. Hayes. C.J. Hayes down in weight a little bit. Interesting. Rocky, Detroit Spartan wants to bet the under. Detroit Spartan talking about me going bald. Let's see. I talked about tight ends a minute ago. Evans Channel says, who do you think starts alongside Julian at corner? You think Gervin gets a shot? So you're saying Julian Barnett's going to start at corner. So Evans is like pretty cocky about it. I like your style. I'm thinking Shaq Brown until proven otherwise. Shaq Brown was functional last year. He's put on a little weight. We'll see. We'll have to see how that looks. I agree, Julian Barnett and maybe Kalen Gervin. Definitely Davion Williams. I think have a higher ceiling of potential than Shaq Brown. But maybe Shaq Brown comes out under Harlan Barnett and he's a better version of Shaq Brown than we've ever seen. So interesting competition there. And with Harlan Barnett coming in to coach those guys, and he recruited a lot of those guys, that puts a wild card variable into all of this. Kalen Gervin could all of a sudden go from kind of sputtering young guy that might have a chance to boom. It's possible. Davion Williams could do that. Shaq Brown might look better. Julian Barnett might be good all of a sudden. I don't know. That's intriguing, and I'd love to be at practice to watch that. Pads are going on this week on Wednesday, and the coaches will start to get a better idea of what they have in the system and in the program as we tick-tock it down toward kickoff October 24th against Rutgers. So that's it. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate all the questions over the Underground Bunker message board that we answered mailbag style. Thanks for the questions over there in the chat area. Thanks for all the support, everybody looking in, and the good things you say about us and the bad things you say about me. It's okay. Appreciate all you guys. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time. We'll have open mic night coming soon. We'll keep an eye on that. Mel Tucker is going to have a Zoom press conference sometime this week, maybe Tuesday. Maybe it's already happened by the time you see this, if you're watching this later in the week. Go to SpartanMag.com. We will be talking about Michigan State preseason practice all the time at the Underground Bunker message board, which is the daily narrative. It serves as the daily narrative of Michigan State football. It is the church of what's happening now in Michigan State sports. So, everybody, thanks for tuning in. My name is Jim Comparoni. You've been watching Spartan Mag Live from East Lansing. We'll see you next time. And bring the beverages. And if you bring beverages, make sure you bring enough for everybody. See you next time. Spartan Mag Live.